Imagine waking up one day and realizing you don't need anyone to complete you. No more waiting for validation. No more chasing approval. What if the key to true strength is found in standing alone, building yourself from the inside out? What if you could finally silence the noise, embrace your true power, and live life on your terms? In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you how to turn loneliness into your greatest asset and transform your life forever. Stay with me. I wasn't born to fit in, so why would I need a crowd to validate my worth? From a young age, there was always this quiet rebellion in my soul. Not the loud kind that breaks rules for attention, but the steady kind that refuses to shrink. In rooms where everyone spoke the same, dressed the same, and thought the same, I found myself silently drifting toward the edges. People called it being distant. I called it self-preservation. When the world celebrates sameness, difference is often mistaken for defect. But the truth is, there's beauty in not belonging. There's freedom in not being owned by approval. In a society obsessed with cliques and circles, standing alone becomes an act of defiance. And sometimes, defiance is exactly what you need to find your strength. Needing a crowd is easy. Standing tall without one is a different game. Validation feels good, but it's also addictive. It trains you to seek permission instead of power. It teaches you to wait for applause before you believe in your voice. But real growth begins the moment you stop waiting. When you stop seeking mirrors and start being the light, you begin to realize that applause doesn't make your story worthy. Your survival does. The ones who stand alone often stand tallest because they've had to build themselves from scratch. Not everyone gets that, and that's okay. Not everyone is supposed to. The journey inward is one of the most courageous paths there is, and not many will walk it with you. But you'll discover that you don't need them to. You'll find strength in your silence, clarity in your solitude. Alone is not empty. Alone is space. Space to grow, space to feel, space to breathe. And in that space, you build something unshakable. You build self-trust, and that's a power no one can take away. Friends may come and go, trends may fade, but self-trust is forever. When you can walk into a room and not flinch at being alone, that's a woman who knows her value. That's a woman who isn't moved by absence because she knows her presence is enough. And enough doesn't beg, enough doesn't chase. Enough walks in with grace and leaves with peace. The truth is, many people are surrounded but still feel lonely, and some who walk alone feel completely whole. It's not about numbers, it's about energy. The energy you allow, the energy you hold, and most importantly, the energy you protect. There's something sacred about your own company, about the way your heart beats when no one's watching, about the way your mind sharpens when there's no noise drowning it out. You start choosing differently, not out of fear, but from alignment. Your standards rise, your vision clears, and your steps become intentional. That's what happens when you stop trying to belong and start trying to become. You don't need a crowd to become extraordinary. You just need the courage to be different, to speak when it's easier to stay silent, to walk away when it's tempting to blend in, to be okay with being misunderstood. That's not weakness. That's raw, unfiltered power. And it doesn't require an audience. It doesn't need likes, followers, or fanfare. It just needs you to show up for yourself, consistently, unapologetically. That's how greatness is born. That's how legends are made. Not in the noise, but in the stillness. Not in the crowd, but in the quiet. Alone is not the absence of connection, it's the presence of authenticity. And there is nothing more magnetic than a woman who owns her truth, even if she stands alone. When the room went quiet, something shifted. At first, the silence felt heavy, like the absence of everything familiar. No voices, no chatter. No one telling what to do, how to be, or who to please. But as the noise faded, another sound emerged, subtle, steady, and powerful. It was the sound of a voice that had been waiting all along. A voice buried beneath the opinions, expectations, and noise of the world. It wasn't loud, but it was clear. It spoke with honesty, with depth, with a conviction that didn't seek approval. And in that moment of quiet, it finally had room to rise. That voice wasn't looking to impress. It was ready to lead. Most people fear silence because it forces them to listen. Not to others, but to themselves. And that kind of listening is uncomfortable. It brings up truth, buried dreams, and wounds we've silenced for too long. But silence is not the enemy. It's the mirror. Only it shows what's real and strips away what's fake. In silence, masks fall off. In silence, distractions lose their power. And when there's nothing left but the raw version of who you are, that's where strength begins. The noise of the world might be loud, but it's often hollow. The whisper within, that's where all the power lives. In a world that values volume over value, being in tune with your inner voice becomes your superpower. That voice doesn't need permission. It doesn't beg for attention. It speaks from truth, not trend. It guides, corrects, and encourages without the need for applause. And when you begin to trust that voice, everything changes. You stop second-guessing your decisions. You stop shrinking to be accepted. You begin to move with a quiet kind of confidence. The kind that doesn't need to announce itself. It simply is. That kind of presence can't be faked, and it can't be ignored. The world often equates silence with weakness. But silence can be the strongest stance. It's where battles are fought and won, internally, long before the world sees the victory. It's in the quiet that the plans are formed, the strength is gathered, and the mind is sharpened. That's where transformation begins. Not in the spotlight, but behind the scenes. Not with a cheerleading squad, but with relentless self-belief. Sometimes the loudest moves are made in the quietest moments. And when they finally emerge, they shake the ground with certainty. Eventually you realize that silence isn't empty. It's full of answers. It's where clarity lives. It's where purpose stops whispering and starts roaring. You begin to make decisions not based on fear or people-pleasing, but on what aligns with your deepest truth. That's when everything starts to shift. You become rooted, grounded, unshakable. And it's not because you had a crowd behind you. It's because you finally had your own back. The noise outside becomes irrelevant when the voice inside becomes undeniable. That's the kind of voice that doesn't fade, company, and feel complete. It's only grows stronger. I was never alone. I was with me. And that presence turned out to be more than enough. There's something powerful about learning to sit with your own company and feel complete. It's not about blocking others out. It's about not needing others to feel whole. It's realizing that the person you've been looking for has been inside you all along. The comfort, the strength, the validation. It was never missing, just buried under layers of doubt. Once that connection with self is made, everything begins to shift. The world may stay the same, but your view of it becomes clearer. You stop chasing and start choosing. Not out of fear, but out of deep-rooted self-respect. Many people fear being alone because they think it means being forgotten. But solitude isn't abandonment. It's alignment. It's the sacred pause that helps you return to yourself. In the stillness, you begin to hear your true thoughts, unfiltered by opinions and noise. You begin to trust your own instincts, your own vision, your own values. That kind of trust isn't built overnight. It's built in moments of honesty with yourself. It's when you realize you can face pain, joy, confusion, and clarity, all without running. That kind of inner bond becomes unbreakable. And once it's formed, no one can use loneliness against you again. There is a difference between being alone and feeling lonely. One is a physical state, the other is an emotional wound. But when you truly meet yourself in your aloneness, the wound begins to heal. You stop expecting others to fill the gaps you haven't explored. You begin to take responsibility for your own healing, your own growth, and your own joy. That's when freedom starts to bloom. No longer dependent on anyone's presence to feel valuable, you become your own anchor. You become the calm in your storm. And from that place, every relationship becomes a choice, not a need.